Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Welcome, Brad.
Oh, hey. You doing a show?
We're doing a show. How's it going, sir?
It's Saturday. We're talking Star Wars. It's good.
Yeah. So
Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary.
Did you go see it?
Not yet. Still need to.
Yeah, I was gonna see it yesterday. Maybe after Scare Live, I'll go to my local theater, see if the son wants to go. The wife will stay home and watch nature documentaries. I don't know.
That movie was legit in theaters. It was beautiful.
So here's something that I did not know, and I was sourcing IMDb and Yahoo News UK. Just how much money it's already made in pre-sales, and the weekend's not over yet.
The anniversary?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
$20 million in pre-sales already.
Just
in pre-sales.
Must be nice.
Yeah, good for
Some
them.
Good royalties, good going around. That's good
for sure. Welcome
Hayden
everybody.
I saw that he.
That's great. Him
yeah.
and Mace Windu surprised a couple of people. I don't know where. I didn't read that, but that's got to be cool. I mean, it's got to be cool for Hayden too, after so many years of, am I loved? Am I not loved? What's going on with the fandom? And it's really nice
to
kind of
back
see.
To be loved,
Yeah, absolutely.
Love him or hate him, he gave it his all for sure.
Absolutely. Let's see. There's some people in the chat already. I got to send Cam Ray some stickers because he was here first. And go follow Cam Ray Semi Productions and ask him about this comment. Very toxic. Backyard TARDIS is here. Thank you for stopping by, sir. He might be lurking because I think some of our followers are tired of hearing about Andor, but oh well. We'll see you in June.
What? Yeah.
Damon is here from the Alpha Quadrant. Or maybe he's in the Delta Quadrant. I'm not sure. Good to see you. Good to see you. And my good friend and yours, Nick Cole from the Red 5 Reading.
Must be nice to read.
Must be nice. Oh, speaking of read, did you start the book yet?
Yeah, I read the first chapter.
Yeah, so did I. First chapter. That's it.
So I had a really I don't know, I had a senior moment, I guess. And because he's walking through Jeddah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how's he walking through Jeddah? They blew that up. I'm like, wait a minute.
They can play with time.
Hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, yeah.
That's too funny. But yeah.
Because it's shortly after, or somewhere after episode 3.
Yeah. So I think what I'm going to do, I might commandeer my wife's Amazon account and then try to see if I can get it downloaded on Audible or something. Oh, yeah. It's hard. It's, I really need complete isolation to read. And as obviously really? as a father and a husband, there's no complete isolation here.
Yeah.
And
if it's Mark Thompson, I'm sure it's Mark Thompson doing the,
oh yeah, he does them all,
audio.
Right?
He's always great.
Yeah. Excellent. But thank you everyone for joining us tonight on Scare Live. This is going to be our first discussion on Andor season 2, and there is lots to talk about. I know you probably have not spent as much time on the interwebs as I do, but that might be a good thing, Brad.
Yeah, it's my sanity's been much better since pretty much giving up on social media. I just post stupid videos now.
And memes. Yeah. What are you? And LinkedIn?
I'm more of a LinkedIn. I'm pretty sophisticated these days.
Oh, I had a question for you. So last night, Nicole and Scott from Used and Abused were on the Red 5 network channel. And they had a nice, cool little hangout, some questions and answers, almost like our Sentry mode, but just more in general. But somebody in the chat, Patrick, posed a question, which I was going to save, but I'm going to ask you this question. And Nicole thought it would be a great idea to maybe premiere it on the show tonight. Who would win in a battle, Superman or Darth Vader?
I mean, they put Superman at God level, so I want to say Superman on this one.
And then, some folks in the chat were talking about reasons why, and they actually made it so Darth Vader had a kryptonite crystal in his lightsaber.
Hold on. Now, we didn't even say we could.
You can do all
customize
sorts
the
of
thing.
things. Yeah, you can customize. And here's the
Nah.
thing, and it depends on what planet Superman's on, because he gets on Earth, obviously he gets
Right,
energy from our sun.
The sun, yeah.
So we don't know what's going to happen in other places.
I mean, I like the kryptonite lightsaber. That's a good touch.
Yeah.
Especially if he corrupts Sid and he turns into a Sith kryptonite lightsaber.
Yeah, that would be good. Comics and Cosmetic says, or Comics and Cosmetic. Whoa, I did a little time travel there.
Throwback.
Comics and says Superman. I don't know if I would agree with that.
Of course,
I
because
don't
you're
know.
a Vader fan. But like,
Yeah,
I mean, look who they put him up against in the DC universe. I mean, he's gone against gods and everything else, and he still wins. So,
but that's a good question. And then I saw this book today, which made me think of the question. And
I think Palpatine would have a better shot than Vader.
Than Vader, really? All right,
yeah,
interesting. And then I saw this book at a store this afternoon, called. Let me see if I can bring this up here.
Very bright screen.
Yeah, no, won't do it. Anyways, it's called Power versus Force, and where'd you go? It's the Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior by Dr. David Hawkins, but it reminded me obviously of that, but it also reminded me of our discussion that we had with clinical psychologist Peter DeMuth here in Chicago regarding Anakin Skywalker and the 4 pillars of the dark side, as I like to keep mentioning. But that
was a great episode too.
Really good episode. So the chat obviously is doing its own thing, and I thank you guys for joining us. Brad is in there now too. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's see. What did Nicole say? Let's see here. Megan suggested a panel on this question. I agree. We need you guys, Danny, Spencer, and anyone who knows the lore to duke it out. Yeah, that'd be a cool cool episode, kind of like when we did a Empire Strikes Back versus Return of the Jedi.
How would Vader have any chance on that one?
I mean, you can use the Force and stop his lungs. To stop his lungs or cut something out,
He's too fast. He's too fast for that.
I don't know about that.
I don't think he can breathe out in space too well either,
True that. So last week we dropped our episode on Star Wars Celebration Japan, and that was a good discussion. We had there was some things in there that we liked, some things that we weren't too excited about. But after that episode aired, did you have any other additional thoughts or any other projects that came to mind that we might have not mentioned? I know there's something that came out actually after Star Wars Celebration Japan. I can't remember what it was now, but I don't know. It's
still just Maul.
Yeah, the Darth Maul project. And I know a lot of people are like, Darth Maul again. But I kind of feel also too that fans that are clamoring for another Solo movie regarding, seeing the story of Darth Maul kind of rise to power in that world. I think maybe this might be the opportunity for us to see that story.
Could they have done a live action Maul? Do you think they could have
Well,
pulled that off?
they could have, but I think this project. Well, first of all, this project might be cheaper than doing a movie or
Yeah,
another.
but think about.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess would it have to be Ray Park with Sam Witwer's voice?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how they did it with
I mean,
the
episode
last
one wasn't
season
his
of
voice.
Rebels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
episode one wasn't his voice either.
right.
So we can do it.
We can. We're gonna have to wait for the special edition of episode 1.
Still no trilogies, I guess, right?
No, but wasn't Kinberg's movie? Wasn't that supposed to be a trilogy? I
I
think.
don't know which
I
one.
don't
I know the Ray one was a standalone.
Right.
Still
That
happening.
one's a standalone. Who knows? But I don't know. Star Wars animation, like Cam says, that's where it's at. I really enjoyed Bad Batch. Obviously, some of the other animated shows are really great. And to be truthful, obviously, before the first season of Andor, I think I was enjoying Star Wars animation a lot more than live action. Which at the time, I think we were doing. I know it's not a high bar, but we were doing, Book of Boba Fett, and the last 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, which you confessed last week that you have not finished yet.
No.
Oh my God. It's funny. I'm encountering more and more nerds, Star Wars nerds and Marvel nerds that don't watch Star Wars or Marvel. I find that kind of interesting.
Did they put up on the bookshelf and they're done with it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know what it is. Like last night with Nicole and Scott. Scott was saying that one day maybe he'll finish watching all the Marvel movies. I don't think he's seen one, just the first Iron Man.
Oh, now I've pretty much given up on the MCU. I know there's still a few that I haven't seen, and I don't think I've watched. I think I watched the what's her face, the Vision,
Wanda.
WandaVision.
Yeah.
I think that was the only one I watched. I think I watched one season of the Loki show.
Yeah.
But besides that, whether it was the old ones from a few years ago or the current ones, I haven't watched that Daredevil at all, or Punisher. But I don't know. I think I'm just too scared to see what they do with those properties. That they're going to be too far off the comic books.
That's fair. I think, certain things in the comic books probably need to have been a little adjusted, but I can kind of see, because I think, for me, I felt the same way when they introduced Venom to the MCU, without the Secret Wars storyline.
Yeah.
So that's, I got a little bent out of shape because of that.
Yeah. And of course the old Venom was horrible.
Yeah. But looks like folks in the chat are enjoying kind of doing some classic rewatch. Nick, Bad Batch. I mean, I really enjoyed the Bad Batch, and I think that's one of the shows that I didn't think that I would like. I didn't want it. They announced doing a series on the Bad Batch, and I was like, oh man, I mean, their episodes in Clone Wars was okay, but
yeah. I'm telling you could do a show like that live action, and I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think nowadays you can, especially because of the technology and stuff like that. I think they can probably do anything.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think Ryan Gosling, I said it earlier, was not on my bingo card as far as new actors in Star Wars. I mean, I remember hearing, like casting rumors early on, and I was like, no way. But hey, I mean, he popped up in Japan, and they made the announcement with the director, and all right, let's see. But yeah, honestly, big screen stuff, I wasn't too excited. I'm not even excited that much about Mandalorian and Grogu having an on-screen adventure that mirrors the small screen. I think they're just doing it with a bigger budget. I almost feel like they're just doing this movie for normal fans, just to kind of get them interested in the property. Whoever may not
They
have
probably didn't
Disney
have enough
Plus.
material for another season, so they just wrap it up with a movie.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm not even excited for Ahsoka season 2, although I really hope that they
I'm cautiously optimistic about that. I think now that they, like I said, I feel like the entire first season was just getting into it. If they're in it in season 2, I think it could be good.
Yeah. I just didn't like, especially towards the tail end of the first season of Ahsoka, I didn't like how they were pacing the story. It felt like, it took 6 episodes to finish up, where it could have been like 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't really like the treatment of Ezra in that, or Sabine even, really.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But who knows? Let's see what happens. Yeah. So tonight we're going to be discussing the first 3 episodes, first arc of Andor season 2. And I hope you got your second monitor going, because you're going to need it.
I do. Did you watch it more than once or just once?
I didn't get a chance to watch it more than once. I wanted to, but there's a lot of stuff that other people caught, which, I wanted to kind of dive in the second time to see what else I can catch. And I think a lot of people, what is that?
It's my Thrawn.
Oh, your Thrawn. Tumblr, nice.
I require no glory, only results.
Yes. But a lot of people were posting online some of the stuff that they caught, and I think that was enough for me to kind of absorb, especially for the show tonight. But a lot of stuff happening on the socials.
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say on the show that I don't know. There's actually a lot of stuff going on the show.
All right, let's talk about it. So we got 3 episodes. The first one 1 year later, and obviously we're going to have some time jumps in between these story arcs of 3 episodes each. And let's hear a little synopsis on that first episode. That was your cue, Brad.
Oh, okay, great. All right. I thought you had something like queued up, ready to go. I'm like, oh wow, he's got little things ready to go. Oh, that was me. Okay, yeah. So first one, 1 year later, obviously 1 year later from season 1, and we're 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, before Rogue One, and it starts off he's stealing and it's a TIE Avenger. So when I saw the trailers, I thought it was a TIE Interceptor. Right. I guess it was the prototype. It was a TIE Avenger, which I guess I saw Star Wars posted something that was based off video game from the 90s, one of the TIE Fighter video games.
Okay.
Is what they based the design on. And, he's talking with another potential rebel and, gives her a little pep talk. Naya was her name. And what'd you got?
No, I really liked her. I think
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, the performances between the 2 actors was great. I think we see, another side of Cassian. I mean, he's becoming like inspirational. He's becoming a leader, and I think
that's a very mentorish.
Yeah. And I'm wondering too, I wanted to ask you, do you think in between seasons, do you think that he read a little more of the manifesto?
I think so. Yeah.
And I hope that they really in upcoming episodes, I hope they kind of allude to that, whether it's through exposition or the way he becomes, or the way he starts to lead, or the way he starts to kind of interact with other members of a rebellion or another group. I think that would be very interesting to kind of see, because obviously we don't see that in Rogue One unless we kind of count the retrograding of Andor season 1 with the manifesto and stuff like that. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to seeing if they do anything like that, and I hope he does, because I Gilroy obviously end both things here. But
Yeah.
I was really impressed at the actress at the beginning of the season show here.
Is she supposed? Is she's supposed to be back in it at any point?
I'm not sure.
Because
I'm not sure.
she's a little fledgling rebel. It seems like here.
Yeah,
And I like to see because I guess each one's skipping a year, or
yeah,
not skipping, yeah, skipping a year, right?
right.
Uh, so she could be back in it and a little more, maybe a little more sure of herself. Uh,
But
but yeah, I love.
she had a really strong line. If obviously she was afraid for her life, and she wanted she asked Cassian, like, is if I lose my life, will it be worth it? I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty heavy.
yeah, it was, yeah, and going back to the manifesto, if they just had little holovids from time to time,
Yeah,
if he just catches them on an off moment watching the holovid of it, that would be cool. But yeah, so he goes to steal the Avenger, um, and what he says to her, the Empire cannot win. You'll never feel right unless you're doing what you can to stop them. You're coming home to yourself, and
mhm,
that's a really great line. Coming
yeah,
home to yourself, um, and then of course, come find out he doesn't really know how to drive this thing.
yeah.
Did you see that
Well,
coming? Was that silly? What do you think?
no, I didn't see it coming. I think the inside of this TIE fighter looks a hell of a lot different than what we're used to. Obviously, the TIE fighter was a single man.
Yeah, there's a little more to this one.
We see kind of a different configuration in some of the TIE fighters in the New Order. You've got the double seats, which obviously I think they did that for story
They built
purposes.
some of Kylo Ren's. They said they built a lot of Kylo Ren's interceptor into this one as
Yeah,
well, so you can
yeah.
see that.
So there's a lot of room here. It almost seems like, do you remember the old Battlestar Galactica where the Cylons were three of them in the cockpit? It kind of reminded me of that. So it looked like it was like double configuration, because when he walked in at first, it looked like there were two pilot seats, and then he looked around and he's like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden he's got that center console that he touches some buttons, and the chair kind of moves up, so he's able to sit in the middle. And I'm assuming that that was a pretty good design, whether you have multiple pilots in that TIE fighter versus just one.
And here's why I really love it. And again, little nods. That was on Sinar, which
Yeah.
going back in the day, Sinar fleet systems, the ones that
Yep.
made the TIE
Exactly.
fighters and a lot of the other Imperial ships. It was good to see that they set it there. And that was, I never knew that. Well, in this case, Sinar was a planet. I think it was just a company name back in the day. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty sure that was just a company name. It
Yeah.
was good to see it though. Good to see that nod there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I thought it was silly. I thought it was I guess a little, more realistic, that he didn't exactly know how to fly the ship. Because it did, like I said, it did look a little different, and it did look a little bit more complicated than what you would be used to going into a cockpit of a TIE fighter.
Well,
There's
I
a lot
mean,
more shiny buttons.
if you're gonna steal something though, why don't you steal the specs on the damn thing? Why don't you steal the driver's manual
Sure.
first?
Unless he thought it wasn't going to be all that different.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
at some point, once you're in that mission, you can't abort. You got to just keep going.
Yeah,
Um,
and of course we have given them crap before because everybody seems to know how to fly every
right.
single ship in Star
Sure.
Wars. So,
Yeah.
um,
But what did you think of? I know you asked me this. They fly out of the hangar bay. You've got all these stormtroopers, attacking the TIE fighter, trying to figure out what's going on. The fact that it was a real TIE fighter set,
oh, was it
and
really?
the background, they built that in the studio, so everything was real. I got to tell you, man, I'm really enjoying the look and feel of this type of show
It
versus
looked
something
beautiful. Looked
like
beautiful.
shot on
Yeah,
on the volume. I know, obviously the volume is used to save money, and I hope they kind of get a better grasp of melding the technologies, so it doesn't look like you're shooting in a warehouse. But this scene looked beautiful. The hangar bay looked amazing, And obviously, anytime I see a TIE fighter, I love it.
And to me, it almost seemed like a little nod to The Force Awakens, where
Yeah.
Poe and Finn are stealing TIE fighter and they get stuck there and have to shoot everything. Seemed like a little nod to that,
Yeah.
which is fine. Again, I no problems with Force Awakens.
Yeah.
He of course escapes. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, they do show a lot of new technology in this TIE fighter. He's got that arm control, which is new. I don't think we've seen that before. It's always been just,
It was nice to see all the touch
wheel
and all that. And of course, we've talked about there's no buttons have any labels on them. That can make it more difficult when you just have to push a random button to see if it works.
Sure. Yeah. But I'm assuming
nice to see that one trooper eviscerated when he finally figured out.
Yeah. The pimp trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, once that TIE fighter blasts out of the hangar, it's really great to see the environment, the sky, the breaking from the atmosphere, going back into space. Something about the nostalgia of hearing the TIE fighter sounds too.
I told you sound was going to be amazing on this one. And
yeah.
Whether it was the TIE fighter sounds or the lasers or the punching through the cockpit or the hangar, everything was great on that.
Yeah. Brad put a question in the chat. Thoughts on the TIE Avenger? I really love it. I just love TIE fighters.
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite TIE fighter variant?
I go back and forth between the Interceptor and the Bomber.
Okay. If I had to choose
for the look, look and feel, the Interceptor for sure. And then if I'm playing a video game and I'm playing a TIE pilot, then I will definitely go with the TIE Bomber.
I mean, the classic is always wonderful to look at.
That's beautiful. That's a good size one too.
But I would have to say that my favorite variant is the Interceptor.
Yeah.
Something about, first scene in Return of the Jedi, but this is probably my favorite TIE fighter variant. But you can't go wrong with any TIE fighter.
Nope. And I love that they only put the best of the best TIE pilots in those things too.
Sure. No. Yes. Let's see. Nicole says it was cool. I love the sounds. Yeah, the sounds are great. The sounds were great. When have you been watching the ILM behind the scenes on Disney Plus?
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah,
I'm going to.
This is the second season now. When I was younger, I used to know all the names. Obviously, we know names like Ben Burt, Ken Ralston, all the people behind the scenes. Nowadays, I don't as much, but I would love to learn to see who's still editing, all the sound effects, who's creating, who's adding more to the library. I think they deserve to at least, have the fans kind of recognize them. So that's pretty cool. The graphics are great. I love, this TIE fighter had the scanning ability on the windshield to the targeting scanner, which is kind of cool. I don't remember seeing that before. So it's kind of nice. I know this happens before A New Hope, but as the tech changes, maybe this is it is a prototype, and
you can see prototypes going back to Thrawn and Rebels and stuff like that, where he's selling the TIE Defender. That's another cool variant, but he's trying to sell the TIE Defender to the Empire.
Right.
So, they're going to have prototypes. So R&D takes a while.
Sure. So we get you want to kind of skip over to after.
Well, I don't know if you want to skip over completely the entire waste of time that is that idiot group of rebels that he landed with. I just don't.
We'll skip that. I think. That's
like 2/3 of the show. I feel like that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, the next thing is we get back to Bix and Brasco on the the wheat the space wheat planet.
Yeah.
But real fast, I guess if we're going to skip the bumbling rebellions on that planet they were on, and spoilers, that's Yavin 4.
Was it really?
Yeah,
Did I fall asleep when they said it was Yavin 4?
I think
Or,
well,
or did they just
they didn't say it. At the end of that episode, he obviously he steals the TIE fighter and
Mhm.
zips back into space, and you can
Yeah.
see the Masasi temple.
Oh, I was half asleep. Like that.
Yeah.
Those ones did me in, man. Like I don't know. Was there some bigger message that I missed in those scenes, or is it just a
You know,
filler?
I have a feeling that it's just a way to demonstrate that some of the rebel cells are just completely unorganized. And I mean, Saw Gerrera was saying that too, that, aren't you tired of trusting the people that are on your side? Because they're idiots. They're bumbling fools. And we see it in Rebels. We see it especially in Rebels because, a lot of the rebel cells are not organized, and that's why they're not effective against the Empire. And that's one of the reasons that the rebellion needs to kind of pool together and have some sort of organizational structure in order for it to be more effective. And I think the character of Saw Gerrera was kind of doing things on his own because, there was nobody around to kind of give orders or set up plans. I mean, he was doing stuff, on an extreme level, too extreme for Mon Mothma, as we know. But yeah, it was one of, I think that is probably the
Yeah,
reason
but it's
for
like
that. It was too long.
they beat a dead horse. They
Yeah, yeah, it was too long. I think,
beat a dead bantha too much.
yeah. Um, Chicago fan says he liked the Star Wars rock paper scissors.
Yeah.
You're allowed to like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if there was just a few scenes with those guys, sure,
Yeah.
but it just kept going, and you're like, good lord, when is this going to be
Yeah,
over?
yeah. And it looked like the ship, when the TIE fighter landed on the planet, it looked like the ship that Cassian had in season 1 was there. Obviously they ravaged it for whatever the technology. It looks like they were supposed to switch ships, deliver
Yeah,
the TIE fighter, and then get his own ship back. But these guys kind of took over.
I mean, the fact that they were trying to pull a TIE fighter with rope,
Yeah.
I mean that it tells you everything right there.
One of my favorite things in this episode is Chandrilla.
Great to see it. Like, and my wife watched some of this with me, and
Mhm.
her comment on that, and I think it's very true, is how many different cultures they kind of blended into Chandrilla,
Yeah.
um, between the costuming and the way they had the old way of speaking and the old customs and stuff like that. Traditions, the old traditions that they had, they really did blend a lot of different, cultures into that. And I thought that was great to see.
Yeah, definitely. I was telling my wife that this show probably has a nice budget on costuming because just the stuff on Chandrilla. Chandrilla is one of those things too that I feel some people might think that it went on too long, but I think there's a I guess there's a better reasoning for this, better at least than the Rebels. The dynamic between Mon Mothma's family, I think, is what was necessary to see during the sequence. Obviously, in the first season, Mon Mothma was completely against an arranged marriage. I know it was arranged for her when she was younger, but she wanted to kind of get away from that tradition. The daughter Leda, though, I mean, the first scene that we see after that wonderful opening shot was her taking her girlfriends in to see the wedding dress, and
Yeah.
they're excited. So I feel like, that is setting up, some really, really great drama between mother and daughter that I think is written so well. Later on, we'll see how they actually interact before this arc is over. But what did you think of Leda and her her willingness to kind of really just go deep into her culture with this arranged marriage.
It almost to me was almost like a 18th or 19th century sort of classical story.
Mhm.
Where you had those old traditions, and whether do you adopt new ones or do you keep the old ones, and you know I, obviously Mon is more progressive, and her daughter's willing to accept the traditional approach. So it's nice to see the dynamic flipped. You would think automatically that it would be the mom wanting to follow tradition, and the daughter wanting to do. But in this case, Mon saw that it's not a very good tradition to maintain, but her daughter was all about it. And I'll tell you what, Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, she's going to be one of the strongest characters. I mean, she was in the first season, and just like Ewan McGregor and all the other ones where they took these old characters and made them theirs, she has done that completely with Mon Mothma.
And you can see a definite almost deconstruction of the character. I mean, Mon Mothma in season 1, obviously she's very cool, collected. She's well researched. Her world is starting to fall apart here in this second
really
season. And I feel like this first arc, all the characters' worlds are starting to fall apart. And I texted you, after we saw the episodes. I think it's structured. This arc is structured in a way that it's going to put such a damper on everybody's character. They're going to feel lost. They're going to see, it's like, what does it take for someone to act and say enough is enough? And I think we're starting to see this now. Obviously, the wedding, her daughter really wants to get into this marriage, and she doesn't. Like, she thought she was doing the right thing by, later on, she has a conversation with the daughter and saying, all those people out there are not important. You do what you want to do. If you wanted to, we can go out there and say thank you, but no thank you. And she's like, no, I want to do this. So that I thought was probably one of the stronger character dynamics in this first episode.
Yeah, and seeing the tension between her and her husband, and like you said, everybody seems to be just tearing at the seams. Luthen, the ladies that work with both, the rebel cells work with Luthen, and I forget the characters' names, but
Cinta
everybody's everybody's
Val.
just on edge, and you can see it ready just to burst at the seams,
including Tay, Mon Mothma's old boyfriend. I mean, he was very regal in the first season. Now he's starting to see, how things are developing with Mon. Obviously, he knows kind of a little more about what's going on behind the scenes.
Foundation.
Yeah. And his world is kind of slipping, financially. So he's kind of tapping into the, what do you call it? The mob boss. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. I mean, he had reason. Ben Miles is the actor's name. Mm-hmm. He had reason to be angry. I'm not sure we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but she's doing well. The rebellion's starting to take off a little bit, and he's seeing a lot of financial strain from it. So
So I'm a big tech junkie. I love noticing camera work and the technical aspect of these shows. That walk through Chandrilla's like little downtown area, the little plaza. It's a single shot, choreographed so well, down the stairs, through the arches. The scene is happening, wonderfully done. I love it. I can't get enough of that.
All right,
and the conversations obviously are great.
Yeah. We kind of breezed over the stuff going on in Mina Rao. What do you think about that? Them being out there waiting for Cassian, and
I guess it had to be. Obviously they have to hide somewhere, so they have to kind of blend in somewhere to not be noticed. This kind of a farming colony is probably the best way of doing that.
Yeah, it almost reminded me of some of the scenes from the Ahsoka book a few years ago.
Oh
with the farmers.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But going into breaking away from that, one of my favorite scenes from the first three is, of course, having to do with Krennic and the
rest of
getting
the
everybody together. They start discussing Gorman. Of course,
Oh,
Gorman's
man.
a big deal. We see some of the Deidre's there.
Mhm.
The other director, forget his name.
Teddy Pendergrass.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, none of you are here right now. And it's great because it really reminded me of like, World War II things, Manhattan Project, that sort of things, these projects that were done under complete secrecy.
Mhm.
And it was nice to see that portion of the empire in action.
Yeah, and obviously it demonstrates how evil and twisted the empire is, making these plans while enjoying a cup of tea and cheese and crackers. Very reminiscent of World War II stuff.
Of course, I told you this is straight 1950s United States. This was CIA at its finest.
Mhm.
Hey, we need Gorman. So we just need to have some very bad rebels do some very bad things on Gorman. So
Right.
we have a reason to swoop in and take those resources. It is
Yeah.
nice to see those parallels.
And obviously in the next arc, hopefully it'll happen in the next arc, but that's going to be a tough thing because we start to see probably the most oppressive that the empire has ever been in these shows. Um, we see the broad strokes of the empire obviously in the original trilogy. We know they're bad, but I think because they are blockbuster popcorn movies for the most part, the concept of the oppression kind of gets glossed over a little bit.
It
um
does. Yeah.
this stuff really, it's in your face, and when you think about it and you look at it and you hear someone explain it like you did, it really makes you think.
Yeah. I mean, in the movies, they told you, and in these shows, they're showing
They're
you,
showing you, and I think
you
that's
know,
more
and,
powerful a lot of
right.
times.
I mean, like, all you get is people like Luke Skywalker in the original movies. You know about the rebellion against the Empire, right? All they, and Obi-Wan saying before the dark times, before the Empire, you have people talking about the Empire, but you don't really see it. It's not in your face, like you said. And
Yeah.
here we got it full force.
But yeah, that's going to be an interesting development as far as how they're going to do that, and looking forward to that for sure.
JT, yes,
Um,
we did, and we agree, and that's why we moved right past them. uh, I love the run times, and then half of the run times was filled with that stupid.
yeah, I think if that was a little shorter, just to kind of show, I guess, what we talked about as far as what the concept was, to show these kind of inept rebels.
If they
Um,
had focused all on, okay, if that was just a pit stop that he made, and they showed way more on, I guess it's Mina Rao is how you say it.
mhm.
Um, if they had focused on that planet more, I think it would have been a lot better.
Sure, yeah, yeah. But obviously I think the fact that they are unorganized probably was a given. If they spent less time on it, I think that would have been fine.
And just for everybody's knowledge, I'm sure you guys might be, or somebody might be doing the same thing. Right now, I'm reading the synopsis from StarWars.com for the highlights of episodes 1, 2, and 3, and I just want to have you go to that page, and there is a picture of Cassian walking away from that TIE fighter on Mina Rao, and that is just a gorgeous picture. I'd love to get that thing framed, put up on the wall,
I want that jacket.
and that jacket. I mean, it's an Imperial jacket, so we can get away with it. I mean, he's so you too can be a test pilot.
Yes,
It would match your hat, I think.
I think it would. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's just a beautiful picture.
And it was wonderful to see Dedra and I was going to say Governor Tarkin, Dedra and what's his name, Krennic, in a scene
Yeah.
together. And it's interesting too that I guess she doesn't really want this assignment. She wants to continue to look for Cassian, um, and fulfill her mission about these rebels stealing Imperial technology.
Yeah, and Ben Mendelsohn, he's another one that's so happy to be part of the Star Wars universe, and he just loves that character playing Krennic, and I think he just does an amazing job.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what's next on that list?
No, I think they summarized all these, not necessarily in order.
Yeah.
Uh,
We go back according to the because I've got my second screen here, and the episode goes back to Chandrilla. You've got Luthen,
yeah,
kind of talking to I forgot the name of his assistant, but I like her character because she seems like she's just more than just an assistant. She's
yeah,
almost like a number two. She talks squarely to Luthen, keeps him in check, really.
yeah. It was nice to see her more than just a shopkeeper.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. um During this time we've got the tail end, I guess, is you got the wedding happening. um A lot of conversation here with Tay and Mon Mothma. It's funny you mentioned Genevieve O'Reilly's acting and her performance. I think throughout this first episode, you can definitely see a change in her face
Yeah,
when she starts to realize things, especially towards the end when she's talking to Luthen. And Nick put up a line just now that is so like powerful when they're trying to figure out what to do with Tay, and Luthen knows what to do with Tay, and Mon Mothma's like, I don't know what you mean, and he says, "Oh, that's so nice for you."
yeah,
It's she's obviously been protected from some of the ugliness that the rebellion does, and I think it's starting to weigh on her, and I think this is a great way to kind of show that. But again, Genevieve O'Reilly's
I mean, you can tell the conflict. You talk about inner conflict.
yeah.
You can tell that character, whether it's on screen or whether it's in the books from the past, she's wanted to take the moral high ground. The disputes with Saul and stuff like that. She's
Yeah.
wanted to take the moral high ground, but she's seeing the steps that you might need to take in order to get to the high ground. And I don't think she's really digging it too much.
No, she's definitely not. And I think, maybe we've seen scenes of her in the Galactic Senate, talking about we should be careful before the monster comes and takes us. I think maybe she's going to try and fight to fight this rebellion her way. Saw Gerrera and maybe some other more extremist groups are going to fight it their way. And we've seen that in the books. We've seen that in the Rebel and the animation. There are two fronts that the rebellion is fighting on, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yep. Luth and Clea.
Oh,
Clea Markey. She looked like Leia.
interesting. Yeah.
I tell you what, as that wedding scene went on, I found it, and this is obviously going all the way into the third episode. The way, did you find that almost unsettling? Like, I thought something bad. Obviously, there's bad stuff happening on the other planets that we're watching, Mina Rao and the other locations. But when they started dancing and twirling, you see Mon Mothma dancing and everything, and with the tempo and everything, I just got I don't know why. I don't know if it was just me, but I got a sense of dread watching
Oh,
that because
absolutely.
I thought something bad
Well, there's a
was
lot.
going to happen there,
Yeah.
and it was roll credits. I'm like, so
Well,
it left me like, and it had to have been on purpose, but it definitely left me like unsettled.
oh, absolutely. And I think is that when we see Cinta be the
Was she flying away
chauffeur,
with?
which is with Tay?
Yeah,
Yeah, everything is
I thought that was
suggested
going to
there,
blow up.
and I think you're well. Tay is not coming back for sure. But
Right.
I think that is the wonderful juxtaposition between, it's almost like in The Godfather, the characters who are, at this dinner. Meanwhile, in the background, people are getting, shot in the head and killed for the cannoli and, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
wonderfully edited and wonderfully played. But it does see, we don't see a lot of what happens, but there is this sense of dread because, um, Mon Mothma knows what's going to happen, and I think that's why she just kind of lets loose. And that ending sequence is just like, I gotta erase, myself for this for a moment because I know what's gonna happen. And I think
Yeah.
as the audience, we suspect it. We don't see a lot of it, but there is definitely a dread that's coming and it's building up. And I think that, for the ending of that first episode, that build up is probably what keeps you unsettled throughout the rest of the two episodes.
Right. And I think a lot happens after all that, and it's going to be alluded to in the next arc, like
Yeah.
directly after it.
Yeah, absolutely. JT, the cutting between the dancing and the other scenes was indeed
Okay, I was
disturbing.
making sure it was
Yeah.
not just me. I was like,
No, not at
like,
all.
like my
Yeah.
heart was racing a little bit. I'm like, where is it? Like the proverbial shit's about to hit the fan here, and then
Yeah.
it didn't. So that's
Yeah.
I guess pretty good storytelling actually.
Yeah, it's a ramp that went like this, and we don't know where the precipice is for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and again, the second episode here called Sagrona Tima.
Yep.
A little Chandrillan lore there, little greeting. But the episode again starts out back on the jungle planet with the idiots.
And
So
if you want to learn a little bit more about Chandrilla, that Claudia Gray book that was leading up to the sequels was, a lot of that was set on Chandrilla as well. So you get more information about it there too.
I think that was Leia.
No, so she wrote Leia
Or
as well, but this is the one where she
the other one.
introduced the name Hutzlayer for Leia.
Oh, that was
Somebody help us
uh,
out in the chat.
yeah. What was that other Claudia Gray book?
But shameless plug here as May's quickly approaching. We got Star Wars Day approaching. A few years ago, we had the privilege of interviewing Claudia Gray
Mm-hmm.
and talking about those books. And she was a wonderful guest, and she put a lot of her heart and soul. Not a fan of, again, she wrote some of the High Republic stuff, but that was just because I didn't care for that arc. But she has done a wonderful job writing for Star Wars. No, not Catalyst. Catalyst was leading up to Rogue One.
Right. Now I got to look for it. Hold on a second. Claudia Gray book. And speaking of guests, Bloodline.
Bloodlines, yeah.
Yeah, Bloodline was a great book. That's one of the books that I could, every chapter I couldn't put down. I was like, something else was going to happen. I really enjoyed that one.
Yep.
Speaking of guests in May, we've got Stephen Sansweet coming back to the Citadel. We're going to talk to him about what's going on with Rancho Obi-Wan and the Star Wars Museum, which I'm going to rent a room there.
Is that still moving along? Is that project still moving along? I hope
We'll
so.
find out. Stephen will tell us. And we're going to drop that episode on May 25th. I know it's Memorial Day weekend, but that is going to be a wonderful discussion.
Yep.
All right. So we get another glimpse of Teddy Pendergrass and Deidre walking to, I'm going to just call him that, Teddy Pendergrass. He's a wonderful actor, man.
He really is. I don't know what else I know him from, but he's
Yeah. Every time he's on screen, there's just a presence. Like you want
he
to
just looks
listen to what he
classically trained.
says. Yeah, absolutely.
He carries himself very well.
Yeah, and kudos to the actress Deidre. I mean, she carries herself well too.
I'm telling you, she is something too. And it was nice to see her let her hair down as well. That was threw me
yeah.
to put her hair down. She's
Well,
not business all the time.
Yeah. All right. So second episode, Sagrona Tima, and I like that they titled it that because it gives you a little inkling onto the lore, the Chandrillan saying here. I want to ask you this because I think from day one on season one, Mon Mothma's husband seemed to be kind of a goofy, idiot, bumbling character that was just there. But I feel like he's a distraction. I feel like he's helping her more than we're led to believe. I think he's not as stupid as people think he is, and I think they set it up that way in order for him to maybe take the fall. Obviously, there's money missing in the main accounts that is being used by the rebellion, but there's also a rumor, and people know that he's kind of like a gambler. So if there's any checks and balances, they're going to blame it on him. So he's there to take the fall. What do you think?
I mean, I agree with you. Like openly, he's a turd. But if you if you look at some of his lines and the way he delivers it, you almost get the sense it's not very easy to be married to Mon Mothma.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's worn on him. The way obviously that he talks about Tay. You've seen your boyfriend lately. That those sort of things. She's obviously we all see her as the hero, but she's got a lot going on, both professionally and personally. And I think he's been maybe reluctantly along for the ride a lot of the time. But I think there's definitely more to him than what was originally shown.
Yeah. Nick has an interesting point. I think he will sacrifice himself so she can flee at one point. And I think that's going to be a very heartbreaking moment because she's going to have to leave her family, not only, the husband, but the daughter as well. She's going to have to deal with losing them, especially after that scene where, she tries to stop the wedding and the daughter's like, no, keep it going. So that's going to be heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I think the second arc, if they deal with some of the stuff politically that they set up, I think it's going to be a heart-wrenching sequence. I mentioned that the Empire has never been so powerful in their oppression. We're going to see a lot of that.
Do you think it's going to get? Obviously, we'll talk about it more here in a minute. But do you think it's going to get darker than what we saw in the third episode?
Yes, because I think it has to. I think obviously, Rogue One deals with the aftermath of all of this, but there's hope in Rogue One because obviously they seal the plans, they succeed. This is kind of a downward trend to these characters. And I think, if you take a look at, and you said you were going to do this, at some point, if you take a look at this entire series, and then, butt it up to Rogue One, it's a complete arc. It does its thing. It goes down and it comes back up, and it culminates into, even including, Star Wars: A New Hope. I think this is kind of unprecedented when it comes to this sort of thing, the connective tissue of a Star Wars product, specifically, this show with the movie with Rogue One and A New Hope.
Yeah, because I don't know, ever since I was a kid, my headcanon of Mon Mothma we only see Mon Mothma on screen for what, 5 minutes maybe tops
Right.
in Return of the Jedi. But my feeling with her was this is a woman who's all by herself.
Yes.
That she didn't have any family, and the only family she had was the rebellion, which would mean if that does come to fruition, that means something would have to happen to her entire family.
Yeah, whether they get captured or killed in some way, but I think a loss is a loss, whether she loses them that way or loses them because she no longer can be with them because she's
Yeah.
off fighting the Empire. I think it's going to be, we've seen what this character does and how she relates to her family and how strong of a character she is. So I think any loss is going to be pretty huge for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
JT, let's go into the chat a little bit. JT says, I think her husband will turn against her. That's the vibe I get from him. I actually don't see that. I see that they are working together behind the shadows. If you remember in the first season when they were going home after a party, you had that the chauffeur that they kind of knew that that chauffeur was kind of listening in on their conversation. They were feeding him information during that car scene. And I think, again, I just have a feeling that they are in on it, but not publicly. They have a certain language when they're alone in this second episode of this arc that tells me that they are really working together in a
You
way.
don't think that the Empire could get to him, though? Because obviously he has reason to hold grudges against Mon. So do you think the Empire could get to him?
Yeah, but are those reasons manufactured as part of the ploy, or are they real? We don't know that yet.
I don't know. The way he talks, he seems pretty scarred to me.
Yeah, maybe, but we'll see. Nick adds, during the dance, you could see that he realized something was very wrong with her. Yeah. Mon Mothma, obviously, very controlled, very serious person. But to see her, kind of let loose, there's definitely a shift in her character that he notices. So that'll be interesting to see how it fleshes out.
And everyone we don't see in Rogue One will have died by the end of the series. Well, there's a lot of characters in the series, but there's some truth to that for sure.
Yeah. All right, where are we going next? Back to the wheat planet? What's going on there?
Whatever. Just don't go back to Yavin 4 and we're fine.
Right. One of the things that I enjoyed after the fact, because I think I was reading a lot of other people's posts on the relationship between Cassian, even though Cassian was not on the planet till towards the end, but Brasso as a character really has grown on me, obviously, and I think he's become a fan favorite. There's oh, absolutely. And then obviously spoilers, whatever, but hey, Spencer, what's going on? That's Spencer from the Dingus Den. Go give him a follow and a subscribe.
Yeah, you are late. Shame on you.
Shame on you. But, there's that character that drove in and said, hey, I noticed that there's some Imperials that just arrived. They're doing some checks. I don't know how many. I don't know where they're going next, but you guys should be careful. Later on, obviously, when the Empire does get to Brasso and the rest of the team here in this particular location, Brasso does something that pretty much saves that other guy. He runs towards him and claims, "Oh, you bastard! You gave us up. You gave us up." But you can tell that there's a little bit of wink, wink, nod, nod. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some eye contact there.
Yeah, and I think that's fabulous. One of the things that I really enjoy about the series is obviously the script, but the actors are doing such an amazing job of interpreting what's on the written page. And I think for a series like, I think for a series like this is amazing. One of the things that when it doesn't work, you get stuff like Willow. I mean, I like the actors in it, but the scripts were just like really, really bad, and they didn't sell it. But something like this, the subtlety, the nuance, the facial expressions, I think, there's several directors on these first 3 episodes, but they did a bang up job in trying to express everything that needed to be expressed to capture emotion and to capture and to elevate storytelling with a combination of script and acting.
Yeah, I mean, and you could have easily missed that The part that you're
Yeah.
talking about. And because when I first, I'm like, oh, this asshole right here. But then it was
Yeah.
like, you saw the wink, you know.
It's funny though. You say that some people can miss it, and I think some people on the internet have been talking about certain things in this first arc. But I think, unfortunately, this is not for 12-year-olds. This is
Mhm.
not for little kids. And very similar to the fact that, maybe a show like the Young Jedi animated adventures are not for, 40 years olds or 50
You
year
know,
olds.
we had a you can't tell from my we had a company picnic today, and I, again, love Star Wars. There was somebody in marketing met for the, or well, I met him for the first time a couple days ago, but he's like, I told him a couple days ago I had a podcast. He's like, "What's your podcast about?" I'm like, "Well, it's about Star Wars," and and he was 55 years old, and so he saw all the originals in the theaters. Pretty much shares our opinions on Disney Star Wars. But kind of the conclusion that we came to is that any one time there should be some Star Wars content for every age group.
Yeah,
So like the Young Jedi Adventures, and
sure.
and there's projects that are in between, and then you have Andor for our age group.
Yeah,
I think that's the right approach. When you say Star Wars is for everyone, there's an asterisk there. Not
sure.
every Star Wars is for everyone.
Right.
So
And that's where I saw somebody post this comment, and that's where target audience is important,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next? We get to kind of like a main store back on the wheat planet, and the Imperials are kind of buying provisions, and there are some of the characters that are also in there in the store kind of being observed and stuff like that. And you get the first interaction between Bix and this Imperial officer that's kind of poking his head around, trying to figure out what's going on, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. Um, he's obviously a bit of a creep. You can tell that
Slimo.
because he's he's watching one of the young the young daughter in the store, and then the mother kind of steps in and says, "Get inside." So the mom already kind of suspects that he's a little bit of a creep. But then he steps over and he goes over to Bix and starts a conversation with her. Um, we can tell obviously what his intentions are. They're not honorable, to say the least. But that conversation uh, doesn't last long because the Imperial troops have to move on.
Here's the thing. I mean, in all reality, he's a very low-ranking officer in the Imperial military. But you can see even with his rank, I think he's lieutenant.
Hmm.
It goes straight to his head. He thinks he's got godlike power just
Yeah,
because of his uniform.
right. And like I said, I think this series really does a good job of showing the Empire, who they are without the cuteness of fuzzy little characters or laser swords. I think it's interesting to have this type of adult topic storyline in the show.
Do you
Uh,
ever want to see this is random? We we've sort of talked about this before. Do you ever just want to see a nice Imperial? Because again, not uh, not everybody in the Imperial Army was like this dude right here. Most
mhm.
of them were probably joined for the right reasons. This was the government that was in power. So government in power, you enlist, or
Sure.
you become
Yeah.
an officer. Not everybody knows that this thing's being run by a Sith Lord. Like nobody
Right.
nobody knows that. That's the point, right?
Hmm.
Do you ever just want to see a normal Imperial that's not acting completely
Well,
evil?
that's a great question because you kind of want to think like what germinates there to have these characters be so vile. What is the corporate structure that allows that to happen and to perpetuate itself, so that we as an audience see all these individuals be so so evil. I mean, the first woman in this first episode, I mean, she was Imperial, but she was nice. She was having regrets, obviously. She was being, turned, and I'm sure, there are other characters like that that are kind
Yeah,
of
but
sympathizing.
not every nice person is going to turn to the rebellion.
No,
You know,
no, they might
they're
they
still
might just they might just quit, or I
not
don't know,
kill or
whatever.
just not kill innocents.
Right, right. Like Finn did, in The Force Awakens.
Well, again,
His
but he also deserted as well. I'm just saying there are
Yeah.
plenty of normal Imperials. It'd be nice to see once in a while.
All right, all right. That's
Well,
like saying,
you can't say that there's millions and millions of them in the military. You're not going to get a group of millions and millions of evil people.
true. I don't know. What about in a non-fictional world? Do you think
I mean,
are
it's
there
like every military does things that is unethical.
mm,
Every military out there, but even what countries we consider bad,
right.
right? But not everybody in that military joined to be evil.
Yeah. JT's got a good comment there. The commander of the second Death Star was
It's a
nearly
very good
normal
point.
in the
They cut
cut
it.
scene. He hesitated to turn the super weapon onto the moon. There was an officer as well that kind of hesitated when Tarkin said to destroy Jeddah. He says there's still Imperial officers in the city.
Yeah,
Um, so
JT. I've talked about that scene before. I really wish they had kept that in because that was like that moral dilemma. I mean, you could see it on his face. He had no like he couldn't believe that was the order being given, but unfortunately they cut it for time.
yeah. Um, do you want to talk about the elephant in the room?
It's not Cyril, is it?
Yes, it's your favorite Cocoa Puffs eater. How I Met Your
No,
Mother scene.
no. Yeah, I mean the only thing I'll say about that it was again completely unnecessary. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what his part is. I know what her part is. I
Right.
don't know what his part is in this whole thing. But I will tell you, I did absolutely love when he basically went and cried on his bed or whatever the hell he was doing,
Right.
and she just set the mother straight. I thought that was
Yeah.
fantastic.
That was an ad lib. That was impromptu.
Are you serious?
The director said, "All right, let's do the scene." And the actor says, "Okay, I know what I would do," because the director asks, "What do you think Cyril would do?" And he goes, "I don't know, but I know what I would do." And then they shot it. He just came in and laid on the bed and just laid there. And the director's like, "That's brilliant. I'm using it."
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
pretty good.
That was his best acting in the entire thing.
But you know what? It's funny though, because like you said, we don't know what Cyril's involvement or what the end results are going to be. And I think Deidre getting involved with him to me seems a little out of character. I don't know. And somebody has accused me of being jealous, by the way, which okay, so what? I am
I mean,
maybe a little.
that makes two of us. But I feel like her lover is her job.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't feel. I think she would be completely career driven at this point. Um,
Absolutely. I think so too. And she's demonstrated it. She's risen in the ranks of the ISB, which no female, it's very difficult for a
yeah.
female to do that. We were told that in the first season.
Just remember, Star Wars doesn't do strong female characters.
No, not at all. But yeah, I don't see, other than bringing in the actress that plays the mom, and she's wonderful, obviously, she's funny. But I'm not sure where this is going. We talk about the entire arc being, a demonstration of loss and tragedy, but I don't know if this particular element in the story here kind of fits that criteria.
I don't know, like what I texted you while we were watching it or afterwards. These 3 episodes had their really cool moments and really just goofy, awkward.
Mhm.
I felt like it was just one end or the other.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. All right, what's next on the agenda here?
The other elephant in the room.
No, I think we're still in episode 2. You
Are
know,
we?
Kalea goes back to the shop, and because they lost track of Cassian, they don't know where he's at. So she goes back and listens to the transmission. Oh, did you notice a little Easter egg when she goes back to the shop? Obviously, we saw it in season 1, but some of the artifacts that the camera kind of does a nice little pan was Queen Amidala's headdress
You lie.
and Plo Koon's mouth breathing apparatus.
This is why we watch it a million times.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
I know that shop has to be loaded. I mean, the first season had the mask from Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
There's the Sith mask from Force Unleashed video game in it.
Nick Bellis has a question. Could Dedra be Cassian's sister? No. With her black hair dyed blonde like a lot of Jews did to pass as Germans during World War II. I don't know.
Remind me how that. So I remember in the first season, because it's been a while since I watched the first season. I remember he was looking for his sister. Did anything end up coming from that?
No. You know what? The Cassian's mother said, stop looking for your sister. She died. End of story. So I don't know if that was, our cue to really, believe the mom, and we're not going to see, that story element anymore. But, Dedra says that she grew up in an Imperial kinder care facility, being indoctrinated.
I don't think she looks, because we see the young version of his sister at the beginning, right? I don't think she looks anything like her. It's a cool theory, but I don't think so.
Yeah, let's see what Nicole says. Dedra wears that pants in that relationship. Obviously, I noticed they were more relaxed when they were wearing the lighter colors. Yeah. Yeah. I like that set. The kitchen set was really cool.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, I guess, if anything, it does seem kind of like they complement each other. I mean, she's very rigid and militaristic and straightens out this, but it's almost like she is falling apart a little bit. Cyril noticed that she put the fork on the plate.
No, I think it just shows his OCD.
Yeah, I guess so. No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, because Bureau of Analytics, whatever the hell he's part of.
Yeah. Well, here's a good question too. Nicole says, "What's the point of the sister's plot line if she's dead?" And maybe we'll find out exactly.
It's Bix.
I don't know. It can't be Bix.
Why? Just because it couldn't be Leia because they kissed.
No, she would have said, "Oh yeah, I lost a brother too, and his name is Cassian Andor."
She looks more like the younger version than Dedra does.
But we might find out how she died, which might be adding to the pain and suffering that Cassian feels. So who knows? That storyline might not be a closed loop yet. So we'll see. Getting back to the show here, I think what the hell is Mon Mothma's husband's name?
Let's go with Gary.
Mr. Mothma. But the wedding scene, for what it was, I think it was really great. As a father, he did his little speech,
Perrin.
Yeah, he played it off well. And obviously there's all this intrigue. All the looks from the actors across that huge table. You got Luthen, looking over at Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma's looking at, Perrin. There's a lot of subtlety in that scene. Obviously we're talking about the wedding, but there's a lot of like cool little tidbits there. The daughter paying attention to Perrin. You got the mob guy who's funding everything, in the room as well. Derek Mothma. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah. I thought it seemed very. I mean, I know they did it on purpose. I thought it seemed very out of place for Luthen to be there at all.
Well, they explained it.
They do. It does. They do
Yeah.
give an explanation, but I was,
And I think,
which
and I,
made it make sense. But when I first saw, it, I was like,
yeah,
that's pretty forward for him to be there.
yeah. And Mon Mothma said the same thing. Like, what the hell are you doing here? And he goes, oh, it's a surprise.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so this is what I mentioned when Cassian escapes from the bumbling rebellion, gets back into the TIE fighter and takes off. You see the Masasi Temple pyramids that we see in A New Hope, and turns out that they were on Yavin all the time.
These idiots.
But yeah, so
I wonder if any of those guys were in Rogue One. Do we know? Do we know if they were?
oh no, yeah, that's a good question. Like the actors, maybe they were.
Yeah.
Some of them were.
When it showed all the guys behind Andor.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? All right. So episode 3 called Harvest. What's the synopsis say there?
I don't know. Your synopsis is better than mine. I don't know the way they wrote this one. I was looking for a better synopsis. Something finally happens is what happens in episode 3.
Yeah, so we get this wonderful wide shot of the wheat planet. Everybody's having a good time. The harvest is in. Did you find it strange? I found it strange that this first 3 episodes didn't have a lot of aliens. They were all human, mostly human characters. Probably not as many aliens as we get in a Star Wars. Obviously, there were some aliens at the wedding on Chandrila. I do see 1 or 2 aliens sprinkled at the picnic area here on the wheat planet, but not as many as I would like to see in a Star Wars show. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a lot of great nods there at the beginning. Speaking of which, tying it together, why Luthen's there, the gift of from Chandrila, Chandrila's history, going back to the Rakatan invasion. Of course, that's Star Wars Old Republic lore. So it was great to see some Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Old Republic nods there. Sure. And it was great to see that. And also Naboo is mentioned as well. Yeah. It's always great to see Naboo get a nod.
Yeah. There was a question in the chat. Oops. Who was that dude with the father from Naboo at the reception? Could he be Rey's father and the non-clone son of Palpatine?
Who's that dude with the father?
Yeah. Who knows? I blocked most of the sequel trilogy out, so I don't remember. But could be. That'd be kind of an interesting little tie-in.
I don't think they're trying to tie much to the sequel trilogy these days.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think Gilroy is not as tied down thematically to anything that came before or they're heading. Obviously, they've got some
Favreau and Filoni will tie it, but Gilroy doesn't care.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm okay with that. Yes, the Empire are fascists and don't like aliens, but I'm talking about where you don't see the Empire. Like I said, I do, there are some aliens on Chandrila for the wedding. So there's that. So yeah, this is the episode, we kind of cut ahead a little bit, but this is the episode where Mon Mothma talks to her daughter. And I love that scene. That dynamic is both actresses, even the young, the daughter, just held her own.
Yeah, she's doing really well.
Really, really great job. And you can see obviously the pain in Mon Mothma's face. Genevieve O'Reilly really doing a great job at portraying that. But again, I think this is where a mother tries to save her daughter, and the daughter is fine with whatever happens. I think she was okay with starting the tradition, the training, or the reading for the wedding. She brought her friends in to see the wedding dress. They were all excited, so she is like in on it 100%. She's really now at this point kind of confused as to why mom is saying all these things, and saying that if I wanted to cut it off, just to say no thank you.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that it would be so confusing for a parent to kind of hear that from her parent, from her the offspring, especially because you think like you're doing something, you're doing it for the right reasons, trying to liberate your daughter from an ancient custom, where in turn she's okay with that custom, and it must be jarring for her as a character.
Definitely a conversation that should have been had a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
Than that moment.
But what's funny though? I mean, the hints were there. In season 1,
Yeah.
she was, practicing. She was, but I think one of the things that we established in the first season between the character of mom and daughter here is that they didn't communicate. It almost seemed like dad was the one that was more communicative.
Pretty frosty in that household.
Yeah. But well done in the second episode. Mon Mothma kind of comes in and tries to swoop in and rescue her, and the daughter is not having it, which can cause a problem, obviously. Again, this is where we see Dedra smiling, which might be a little out of character again for her.
I think so.
Yeah. What else?
Or is it trying to show that she's not all business?
I guess. But again, I don't see the point of meeting Cyril's mom. I don't see the point in continuing to see this character. I don't know, unless they've got something up their sleeve. But
is that,
funny?
Is this the lightest it's going to be? And that was just just kind of like George said with the prequels.
Make it silly.
He made one silly on purpose because he knew it was going to get darker in 2 and 3.
Yeah, maybe
same thing.
What if Cyril, and this would be poetic justice, Cyril becomes an Imperial officer and gets promoted to serve on the Death Star, and we all know what happens then, right?
That would be a good spot for him.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he really would be. He'd be really good in the ISB, with his analytical skills.
Yeah. Let's see what else. The rest of the episode is really wedding. What did you think of? Because they really expanded the ceremony of the wedding. I think they really kind of went all out. We talked about the costumes and the culture of Chandrila, but I felt like I was actually there at the wedding. The dancing, the ceremony between bride and groom. What'd you think of all that?
I mean, yeah, it looked nice. I'll be honest with you. I thought I know it's very similar to the pacing of the first season. I thought everything unnecessarily was dragged out in the first 3 episodes.
Okay.
I just didn't need that many scenes of each of any location that they were at. I didn't need that many scenes of it.
Sounds good. All right, back to the wheat planet. You've got the Imperials still there. So Brasso and Bix and the rest of the fugitives here are trying to figure out how they can transfer from one work location to another without being noticed. And it's getting a little complicated because we see Bix and company packing up and trying to make their move. And speaking of making their move, that Imperial lieutenant goes back to see Bix.
Yeah.
Is your husband here yet?
What a creep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gonna talk about the Bantha now?
Let's talk about the Bantha, because I think that really represents, I guess, her character's loss and violation. I think it also kind of represents a little bit of her, having the ability to fight back. Lots of talk on the interwebs regarding this scene. I know it was leaked by some folks that there was going to be something in this series that has never been in a Star Wars. But let's talk about this broad strokes and then kind of pinpoint it. What are your thoughts on the concept of a sexual assault in this?
So we had talked about, I don't know if we talked, I think we talked about it in the last show, or maybe we talked about it after our last show. But I tell you what, I had anxiety the entire time I was watching it because I was dreading this scene. And I was like, oh, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Because, if the rumors were true, but I just don't think it's necessary in the Star Wars universe. We know the Empire as a whole is an evil entity, and we know that there are bad people in there. Violence of that nature, I don't think has a place in storytelling. I know Gilroy is trying to show just how he's trying to illustrate how evil the Empire is, but I almost feel like it was for this purpose only of trying to be edgy and trying to get people to talk. I mean, it got people talking for sure. But I feel like Andor, Rogue One, they already stood on their own. I don't think you needed any edginess at all. What was required? If you just showed this guy as a scumbag, um, even maybe going so far as just to alluding to it, that's as far as I would go. But I don't think it has any place in Star Wars telling. I mean, at least it sounds bad even saying it stopped where it did. Right. I mean, that's the silver lining. Right. But I think it was unnecessary.
All right. Well, I see your point. I think I'm going to disagree a little bit with you. I think I actually was also kind of on the edge of my seat for the scene. I didn't know how far they were going to take it. I don't mind this type of story element in a Star Wars. I think the damn franchise has the name Wars in it, so you're going to see some ugly stuff. I think we talked about the fact that this is not a show for 12-year-olds. I was actually more nervous about how the fandom was going to react to said scene. And again, like you said, they didn't really show anything. It was an attempt. And I think it was relatively speaking, I think it was done well for these characters. She obviously fought back. Nothing actually happened. There was an attempt, obviously. She fought back. She killed the guy. It was very satisfying. Bravo to Bix. But it's no more graphic than network TV shows like LA Law, special SVU, the special victims,
but it's not that though. It's not that though.
No, it's not that, but I think those
shows are if I watch SVU, that's exactly what I expect to see on Law and Order SVU.
Yeah, but I think you're showing something of an adult nature in this adult show, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm glad that it didn't, that it stopped at a certain point. I think there was a line that they went up real close, but I don't have a problem with the way they did it and the way they portrayed, both of the characters, the Imperial officer and her. I think it shows that, and I understand everyone's interpretation of, hasn't Bix suffered enough, and they could have showed it in another way. Yeah, they could have showed it another way, but they chose this way, and I don't have a problem with it.
Hmm. Oh, so somebody mentioned Uncle Owen and Baru. Yeah, argument can be definitely made against that too. I mean, I'm still scarred from seeing those charred bodies as a kid, but any violence of a sexual nature is like the highest degree of a violation, right?
Yeah.
But besides murder, right? It's the most intimate form of violence that there is. And I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind over time, but as of right now, I think they could have shown the evilness of the Empire without going there.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And I think, again, I think this arc really is structured in a way to defeat all the characters. They want to put them at the bottom of the barrel to be able to say, when is enough enough? I have to make a decision to fight, to maintain, integrity to not only mine but the galaxy. So I think, this is just kind of a progression of where these characters are. Cassian not only loses his mother, loses his sister, loses his best friend. Brasso gets killed. There's an emotional scene of that. Everybody is losing. So at some point, the hope has to come in. And these characters within this series, they have to make a decision. When are we going to fight? When are we going to fight? I don't want to look up and see the Empire reigning overhead. I want to do something about it. And I think this is part of it.
Sure. Well, for what it was well done. It's necessity. I'll still debate that, but the scene was well done and shows just how strong Bix is. And of course, he did get his comeuppance at the end and got what he deserved. So that was good to see.
Somebody pointed out too that the driver that was waiting outside while this was happening, he heard Bix's scream, but didn't act. He only woke up and acted when the officer acted, which obviously gives you the hint that this guy has done it before, and this driver was his cover, in the past. So it's interesting too. I mean, yeah, the Empire, is bad, and this is just one aspect of it.
He could have been doing it every single inspection spot for all we know.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's I guess that's our take. Like, from, if this was like one episode, the 3-episode arc here, how many out of 5 stars, how many stars would you give it?
Oh, well, but we forgot one thing, which is Andor finally arriving.
Yes.
On Nina Rao.
Right.
And that was by far my favorite scene in the entire thing. When I saw it in the trailer, I'm like, this looks like some straight, clips from Vietnam, shooting from the helicopters and stuff like that. Like that, just to, finally got the hang of the TIE fighter. And like, again, we talked about how menacing
a TIE fighter,
a TIE fighter is in low orbit. It's not scary when it's out in space and there's a million of them going against each other. But when you have one and it's in low orbit, or if it's doing strafing runs like this, it's terrifying.
Sure.
And it was good that he finally showed up when he did and took care of business. And I thought those shots from the cockpit down to the ground, I thought that was some beautiful work there.
Remember in I think it was the end of the first episode on season 1 where they were intercutting young Cassian with present day Cassian.
Yeah.
And when young Cassian was taken off the planet, he was on that ship and he was just kind of like looking off into the sky. And then they intercut with present day Cassian when he was doing the same thing. That was kind of cool. And I think they did the same thing here after everything that has happened. You have some of the people that left the Wheat Planet. You had Cassian, obviously, driving the TIE fighter. Bix was sitting behind him, and he turns around and he gives her a look, and the look that she gives back is one of defeat. And
Yeah, it really is.
and I mean, they both had the same look. There's a connection there. Bix went through what she went through, and Cassian goes through what he goes through. Not comparing the two, but obviously the loss is there, and the way they communicated each other silently through looks, and through the emotion in their face speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the realization of these characters start to manifest itself as far as what the next story arc is going to be. This is when they start to take action and try to maintain control of their destiny.
Yeah,
Going,
they have no other path to take at this point.
Right. And I
the
think
table is set.
yeah, and I think that was the purpose of this arc. It was, let's show everyone, lose things, lose people, to get them at their lowest. And I know that middle film of the sequel trilogy tried to demonstrate the same thing, but not very successful. I think this arc does it a little better, to demonstrate the loss of these characters, to be able to kind of jump in and change their destiny for the future.
Yep.
Yeah,
go back to before we do some grades. I want to go back to a couple of comments in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm with Nicole on this one. We you mentioned it. Everything that Bix went through in the first season, not necessary. I'll just leave it at that. I don't think it was necessary. And then they gone. Welcome to the show. And yep, the Y-wing is definitely the A-10, the warthog of the Star Wars universe. But yeah, we talked about earlier the editing of those the final scenes, just terrifying. You have something to be celebrated. You have a wedding going on, and all you feel is dread that something bad is going to happen.
Right.
But here's the problem with grading these episodes. To me, Andor is on a separate scale than what I would put your normal Star Wars project on. We hold it in very high regard, and so I'm going to judge it more harshly. This is on my Andor scale.
Okay.
So it's not, if we watched it in a vacuum, maybe I'd give it, somewhere between 7 and 10. But the first 5 episodes, or first 2 episodes, maybe a 5 each, and a 6 for the third.
Okay.
Because we do hold it in very high regard, and I know, like you said, this is setting it up. And maybe if it was to be binged all at one time as part of a bigger package, I'd see it in a different light. But just as these 3 standing alone, I can't go any higher than the 6 for all 3, closer to a 5.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's fair. I think for me, obviously, well, for both of us, we were looking forward to Andor season 2. The series is not done. I know these 3 episodes had some stuff that probably could have been trimmed down. But I think, I think the writing still is top notch. I think it definitely stands apart from the rest of the Star Wars. And we like some of the other Star Wars stuff that we've been reviewing. I mean, Skeleton Crew was fun. It was really great to see, that adventure. But again, target audience is important here. And I think, this is a very different Star Wars. I posed the question a while ago, what does, in 2 years, Star Wars is going to be 50 years old. That's half a century. What does Star Wars need to do to survive the next 50 years? Do we continue, rehashing stories like A New Hope? Do we do another The Force Awakens the next 10 years? when are people going to be, asking for more unique stories in that universe? And it all can't be, we're fighting the Empire 3.0, 4.0. When do we get to a point where we branch out of that way of thinking? And
I mean, it's got to adapt, right? It's got to adapt, and it's got to evolve. But I think that scene with Bix is just cautionary on how you adapt and how you evolve. Just watch how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and again, I don't think that in the future we're going to get, something that crossed that line that I mentioned earlier, because overall it is kind of like a Disney product. Although in Daredevil, the last episode of Daredevil, you see Kingpin pretty much crush someone's skull and they don't cut away. So who knows?
I mean, he does that in the comic books all the time.
Yeah. But anyways, that's it. I would give it a solid 7. Again, if some of those things were trimmed down, probably a little higher, but it is a solid 7 that
you're grading the whole arc, the whole 3.
Yeah.
What if you had to individually grade them?
6, 7, 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's not too far from yours. I might probably be a little more, on the, I'd probably give it a little more protein, towards the end there. But I'm looking forward to next week. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm still definitely looking forward to this week. And I do think they're going to get each week is going to get better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's it, guys. Andor season 2, first 3 arcs. Thank you everyone for joining us here on the Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to say?
Hey, I just want to say thank you guys in the chat, and just thank you for spending your Saturday night with us. You could have been anywhere, but you're here with us. I think that's a Jay-Z line. And just want to say thank you guys, and thank you for your active participation in the chat. This is why we do it, so very much appreciated.
Absolutely. Remember to subscribe to the YouTubes, hit the thumbs up and all that wonderful stuff the kids are saying. We are part of the Red 5 Network. Look for the rest of the Red 5 Network team over at bio.link/Red5. And actually, if you guys want to comment on anything we said tonight, give us a call at 773-234-8659. That's the Scare of Scuttlebutt hotline. Leave us a voicemail and we'll address it next week. Next week we review the next arc in the Andor series, episode 4, 5, and 6. We'll see how we like that one. Until next time, thank you guys. Remember, it's always sunny on Scarif.
And that's the Scuttlebutt.
Take care.